fresh out the oven.
What is cracking, everybody? It's MegapiemanPHD here, and welcome to another Look at My Map video. This time for Payload Midwest Alpha 2, or Alpha 3, actually. But first off, I'm going to show off Alpha 2, or Alpha 3B, I guess is the official current version. But I'm going to show off some of the previous versions, because I didn't actually make videos on those, since I was working on these at the same time that I was working on Synthetic Event. Originally, I wanted to make this map for the Back to Basics contest on tf2maps.net, but unfortunately, I just didn't have the time to work on both maps and get this one into a state that I really liked it in order to enter it into that contest. Originally, I was going to enter Alpha 2 into the contest, but I decided against it because it's got issues, and I just didn't have time to playtest everything with also working on Synthetic Event, which unfortunately did not get into the Team Fortress 2 Scream Fortress event this year, apparently. The day that I put that up to the workshop is apparently the exact same day where Valve decided what maps they were going to buy for Scream Fortress this year, and since my map wasn't up there, it didn't really get any recognition until afterwards, so it didn't get picked up. But who knows if they would have picked it anyway. Anyway, enough about all that nonsense. Let's talk about Payload Midwest. Now, Payload Midwest started literally just as this fancy building right here. It's why this building, compared to everything else, is a lot more fancy. I saw a image of this sort of mill building. I think it was from Chernobyl, that area in Russia. And it looked kind of like this, and I liked the design. I wanted to try to replicate it with brushes, and it came out pretty well. And then I wanted to build off of it for a payload map, because I haven't made a normal payload map. That's a problem. I haven't made a normal payload map as of yet. I made payload race, but not payload. And my hope, my overall goal with mapping for Team Fortress 2 is I want to make a finished map for every game mode, or at least official game mode. Right now, I've made a King of the Hill map with Synthetic. I've pretty much finished Payload Race with Rush, and now we're moving on to Payload. So that leaves Capture the Flag, which everybody hates. That leaves 5 CP Push, which is that also leaves what? What else is official? I think, Attack Defend. Attack Defend is fun. There's also the more, I mean, they're still official, but they're sort of like the side game modes, like Special Delivery, Manpower, Pastime, Player Destruction. I really want to make a Player Destruction map. And that kind of stuff. I'm not going to worry about Arena, because nobody plays Arena. Arena is not supported officially as of anymore. But I do want to try Territorial Control. I don't know if I'm going to make one of those, but I want to try to somewhat make a map for every quote-unquote official Team Fortress 2 game mode. And now we're moving on to Payload. So let's talk about Midwest, shall we? Alpha 2 specifically. So when I went to designing Blue Spawn for Midwest, I wanted to make it specifically that Blue Team is not going to get trapped into their spawn. Now, this is something that I see happen on a lot of payload maps, specifically Payload Badwater. Is it Badwater's Payload, Badlands is CP? Yeah. Badwater has this real big problem where Red Team can easily keep Blue Team in their spawn for an entire round, and that is just not fun for anybody. Barn Blitz isn't quite as bad, although it can still happen. And I think the multi-stage ones, that doesn't happen too often, but it can still happen. Mainly, by the way that I wanted to do this is I wanted to make sure that the area that is right around Blue spawn, Blue has the complete advantage. So they've got 3 exits. They could exit over here to get some height. They can exit down here to get straight to the payload cart, and you got a decent bit of cover, or they can exit over here to go around this way and try to get anybody who's stacked up over here. I did try to build some defense areas, of course. You've got this area up here where you can snipe from and build a sentry. You can build a sentry over here. People seem to like to build sentries on this hill because they have to... Blue team has to push up this hill, so... that seems to be working well, at least working as intended, where blue team has this whole space down here that's theirs that they can move around in and do whatever they want in, and then red has their space up here. So the invisible front line is like right here, something like that. Every map has this invisible front line where if teams are at least decently balanced, that's where most of the fighting's going to happen. So the invisible front line is like right here, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. That way blue team can actually get out of their spawn room and possibly do something instead of being bored to death while they get spawn camped and get steamrolled. A point, on the other hand, is very much built for defense. All this stuff over here, you've got all this height advantage. You've got more height advantage over here for people coming up the hill. I've debated on making this hill a rollback zone, but I think that would be a little bit too much. Just a bit too much. And there's only really two ways to get over to A. You gotta go up this main path. Or you can take this flank path to come around here. People usually build up on this platform. I haven't really seen anybody build up over here as of yet. Now, I specifically made this area here for defending, but I haven't really seen anybody use it, which is a little bit disheartening. Maybe as development goes on, we can figure out exactly why nobody's using this area. Nobody's using this area either, even though I got pickups here. I'm not entirely sure why. Everybody sort of builds up here, and then when their stuff gets destroyed, they build up here instead of working off of these buildings. I'm not really sure why. Maybe the map just hasn't existed long enough for people to really see that these buildings could be taken advantage of. I'm not entirely sure. But let's move on. Now, B for Alpha 2 is over this way. Something that I wanted to do with this map is I really wanted to work with angles and larger spaces. I feel like a lot of my maps are mostly 90-degree angles, and they have generally smaller spaces, whereas payload maps in particular, from the ones that I can recall, have a lot of more open spaces. Like, Badwater has some good open spaces. It even has that whole area by B that you don't really see a lot of people in, but it still exists and can be used, well, if you need to. Borneo's got a lot of open spaces. Enclosure's got some good open spaces, so I wanted to try to not copy the open spaces, but still work on more open areas that aren't super cramped. One thing that you see a lot with payload maps is something like payload, let me think. Something like Gold Rush. I guess Gold Rush and Hoodoo are good examples, where the cart path is pretty much the entire map. There's not really a whole heck of a lot going on away from or to the side of or anywhere else from the cart path. Like, all the routes and buildings and everything's like right up on the cart path. And maybe that works well for multi-stage, but for single-stage payload, it can get a little bit dull. I think Payload Precipice also has this problem for some areas, like around the B area, where it's just all you have to do, the only place you can go is the cart path, which is a little bit dull. So I wanted to make some more open spaces and try and change that a bit. Where is, oh yes, here, this is what this looks like. I'm sorry, I'm used to looking at A3, I forgot some of the stuff about A2. Over here we have red spawn. Not Red's original spawn. Their original spawn is a forward spawn up here. And then when A is captured, this closes off, and they spawn Oh, pardon me. And they spawn back here in their final spawn, which they can go quickly to use this exit or this exit to get to B. And once they exit out of there, they get a decent amount of high ground. This did not work the way that I wanted it to, mainly because blue team would always just roll on through B before red could set up a defense. I think possibly because red was just too far away with what their spawn room was at before they could really get there. And then once B is captured, this door shuts, this door shuts. Yeah, those doors shut, so you can't go that way, and you have to worry about defending C. Now, C was the big problem with the first couple of versions of this map, mainly because of how I did it. I wanted to include a turntable. Turntable are only in one official map, which is Barn Blitz, but my idea was to have like a loop to go around this way, that way, that way, and that way. So first they go this way, and then they come around and go back that way after they capture C, the turntable spins. This didn't work in the slightest. The original version of the map had them going from A to their last spawn room, and the problem was that the payload cart was being pushed away from them, so they couldn't really defend it. There is a spawn room over here in Alpha 2, which is where they go to after A is capped, not to the last. They go here after A is capped, and it's nearby C, but there's still the problem that once the cart gets, like, up to this area, it's going away from where red is, so red can't defend it. And I learned something very important for payload design with this attempt to make a point. Mainly, do not make red team chase the cart. Red team can't defend against the cart if they have to chase it. So, what you want is you want blue team to come to red team. You want the cart to have to come to red team and go through red team. You don't want red team to have to chase it down because a lot of the time they can't do much about it, and especially if you have a loop like this, once they get to wherever the cart is, or cart was, if they're chasing the cart around this way, and the cart's over here, then it just gets this free push on over to wherever you're going because red team's over here, whereas blue team is pushing over there, and everybody's out of position. My thought was that if I could have them build up a defense like into this area, so blue team had to go past red and then go past red again, it could work. Maybe if I had designed this a little bit differently, that would work out that way, but from what I was able to mess around with, it just doesn't work. A couple other maps have tried this idea, and none of them really have been able to figure it out, and I just decided it wasn't worth working on, so it's a learning experience. We're always learning here. It's not a failure as long as you're learning, and I learned, indeed, I learned that, or at least what you don't do, and what you don't do is make a red team chase the cart. Even with these flanks and whatnot, none of this was really ever used in this version because blue team kind of just rolled through B, and then red couldn't do anything about them, and they rolled through C. D, on the other hand, the final point, did have a bit of defendability thanks to this big rollback zone that nobody liked fighting. Nobody liked this big rollback zone. I think the design of this final or last is not bad, but it's also not good. I believe there's a door up here that shuts or something. There's a door somewhere that might shut. I don't entirely 100% remember. But yeah, people really didn't like having to deal with this massive rollback zone. There are some flanks around here, like through this small area, which would be a ventilation shaft if I were to detail it. And there's a good amount of defendability areas, defendability spots that you can be at for red, like building up a sentry over here, building up a sentry over here, maybe building up a sentry over here, although you have to deal with distance from there, and unless that door shuts, which I don't remember if it does, and you have to worry about this flank around this side. But still, it was all the big problem. And basically, C and D just didn't work. And they didn't work for different reasons. B also didn't work. And from what I was able to gather, B didn't work because red spawned too far away. They couldn't really get to B to get set up before blue got into position that they could cover the point. C didn't work because red team had to chase the cart. Even when their spawn is very close to C, they still weren't able to do a whole lot because they mostly had to chase the cart. And D didn't work all that well because of the massive rollback zone. People just didn't find it all that fun. So, let's go to Alpha 3, specifically Alpha 3B, because it took me a while to get all the logic to work the way I wanted it to, and see how things changed. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at Payload Midwest Alpha 3B, and as you can see, at this part of the map, not a whole lot has changed. But if you turn the camera this way, there's that! There's the Great Red Wall. Dun dun dun! It's spooky. One of the big things that I didn't talk about last time that I did change for this was the lighting. Now, the skybox that I'm using is the Harvest skybox, specifically designed for the map King of the Hill. Well, originally Arena Harvest, but it's officially as King of the Hill Harvest in TF2. And the reason why I'm using this is because it's a good looking skybox, and only Harvest uses it. No other maps use it, and I don't understand why. Until I started using it myself and was using the default values for lighting and finding that a lot of the map was really yellow. So I've messed around with the lighting to make things less yellow and less looking like they're covered in Gerati. I'm also using the Harvest ground textures here, so everything should match up and look nice. And I believe that, or at least I'm thinking that I'm going to use Barry's Autumnal textures pack on tf2maps.net in order to texture these buildings and go with a industrial farm autumn theme, because I like the farm theme, and surprisingly you don't see it as much as you think you would in default TF2. Anyway, but yeah, A really hasn't changed at all. I don't think I touched A one bit outside of this door here. Now, something I forgot to talk about last time is blue did have a forward spawn that was up here in Alpha 2, and when they captured B, this door would open to give them a little bit of a shortcut, but... oh, pardon me. But since everything's been changed, that's no longer a thing. A and where the payload cart start are the same because I didn't really have anybody saying anything bad about it, so I just left it alone and completely redid C, D, and I moved B. This area back here is still mostly the same, except this is now where red team will originally spawn. They will spawn here. That way that they can go around this way, have a bit of height advantage so they can't get spawn camped. And they're pushed back a little bit from their original spot over here. The problem that I had with this was that when people went to fight A, they would also be like right in the sideline of the spawn, basically the spawn door. Not exactly the spawn door, since the spawn door was a little bit farther over, like right here. So you couldn't be a sniper standing in spawn and looking all the way over there. But it was close enough that I was a little bit worried about it. So I just preemptively moved red's first spawn over here, and I think everything works pretty well. It's not too much that farther away than it was originally. I also added a little bit of more cover here with adding this rock. Originally, I had this rock here, and then the last version, I removed it. In this version, I put it back in so that there's a little bit more cover. And I pushed B from here back to here, mainly because I sort of built the geometry around this area for defending B, but because B was up here, it didn't really help. By pushing B back underneath this building thing, I don't know what it is, it just looks cool. By pushing B back here, I'm hoping that it will allow red team to actually use the space that I made for defending. This spot over here was specifically made for building up sentries. This spot here was specifically made for building up sentries. If you can get an engineer on top of here, you can also build up sentries. So hopefully that will stop blue team from just rolling through B, as well as this bit of a rollback zone. Now, from my experience, well, I don't have a problem with rollback zones, and I kind of like them, to be honest. Blue team, or generally testers on blue team, really don't like rollback zones. So, or at least lengthy ones and really steep ones. So this rollback zone, while it is a bit on the long side, it's not too bad. I don't believe it is. It is. I mean, it's a sizable distance. It's not super sharp, if you can understand what I'm saying. It's not like super high. So you do have to worry about the cart rolling back, but you don't have as red doesn't have as much of a automatic height advantage. There still is a height advantage, but it's not as bad as it was before, way back in the whatever that I worked on all of this. I did keep this too, even though I don't know if I'm going to keep this thing here. I might get rid of it so that red team can just go this way. It's a little bit of cover, but it all depends upon how people use this spot of the map. I'll just put this sign here, hoping that it gets across the fact that you can't go over here, so if you try to go here and then try to rocket jump up here, you'll hit the sign. Or the sign at least shows you where the boundary is at a height distance, opposed to just the fence down here that shows you where the boundary is. So maybe there's a little bit more of a reason to give off why you can't go over here because this is out of bounds. Maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Change the tunnel, of course, because all of this is different. So the tunnel now goes over to here, where originally that conveyor belt, that grain conveyor, went up this building. All of that has been moved around because the conveyor belt is now over there for C Point, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Now, when blue team captures A, red team changes from spawning here to spawning over here behind B. I'm worried that this may be a little bit too much of a trek for them for defending B. They do have this shortcut of this stairwell, these steps here that can go like right up to where B is. Otherwise, they got to go all the way around all of this. I'll have to see whether or not I want to keep that. I might move their spawn like back to here so they come out this way instead of popping out down here and then going all the way up there. I'm not entirely sure about that as of yet, but we'll have to wait and see how things play. But yeah, you should be able to build sentries here, maybe build a sentry here, build a sentry over there, maybe build a sentry up here if you can sentry jump your way up there as an engineer to make B actually defendable. Also, with all of these signs here showing C, C, and D, red team, when they walk out of this, they should immediately be able to see, oh, I can see C from here. Oh, that's D over there. I'm going to B. I shouldn't go this way. I should go that way, because that's probably where B is. Not only is there an arrow pointing that way, this way obviously will not lead to B because this is where C and D are. So it's got to be the other direction. Hopefully that works out the way I want it to. I tried to make sure that I had all of this signage here, just in case. Now the thing with signs is a lot of players ignore signs, unfortunately. So these signs are like right in your face, so you can't ignore them. I mean, on a map like Badwater, where red's original spawn has that big arrow that comes out of the ground to tell you where to go. Yeah, I have on many occasions see people run past that arrow to take the long way around before they really figure out how the map is played. So hopefully all of this signage will stop such a thing from happening, and somebody doesn't end up all the way at final in here when they're supposed to be going to B. Anyway, once B is captured, things change again. Red goes from spawning there to spawning in their final spawn all the way over here by D. And they can then use this shortcut to go over this way and get it build up over here, get up here so they can get a bit of a drop down, make it over to this conveyor area, as well as this hallway that allows them to build up in this area for defending C. And then once C is capped, this doorway shuts, and they can build up here, and they can build up over there, and they can build up over here in order for defending D. Once B is captured, blue spawn does change again, or change for the first time in this version. Changes from the original blue spawn to using the exact same room that red's first spawn is, and this is where blue spawns with the rest of the map. In this version of the map. Now, I wanted to do what I call a trade spawn. I'm trying to think of official maps that do it. I know Upward does it. I don't know if any of the other ones do it. It took a bit of finagling to really figure out how to make a trade spawn that goes from one team to the other team, but I wanted to do it because it makes good use of this space, and it means I don't have to figure out where to put another spawn room. I can just reuse the spawn room. And red team spawns facing this direction in this room, whereas blue team spawns facing this direction in this room. So red team, mostly when they spawn, they will see this door and they can go that way. They can see this door too. This door does open, but they don't really need to go that way because that way leads to B, and they're originally shown facing this direction, so usually players go the direction that they spawn in. I know a Barn Blitz, their original spawn for red, does something similar, and people don't really have an issue with navigating that map. So hopefully they won't have an issue with navigating this one. And of course I have blue spawning this way because I want blue to go this way. They can still go this way if they want to, but mainly they see this way and they can go that way. And both of these doors are facing two different areas, so it should stop the ability of being spawn camped. Which nobody likes, because there's two doors and they're in very different directions. This spawn over here only has one door, but it's so far away from where blue team should be, I don't believe it'll be spawn camped, but there's always the possibility. Having more than one exit to your spawn rooms is usually a good thing to do. I might add another one, I might not, I don't know. But blue team will then spawn over here. They'll be able to go down over this way past this loading zone with these awesome looking truck models made by FGD5. This guy is a vehicle mastermind. What is that? Is that animated? Is that supposed to do that? I don't know. I don't know what that is on the window, but okay. Yeah. That's a floating prop. Man, FGD5 is a master when it comes to making vehicles, so I wanted to include these trucks for this sort of loading zone for the mill, for Midwest Mills, which is the main theme of this map. I also have this car over here, which is by FGD5 as well. It's not in the plays area, but it's a cool looking model, and I wanted to use it, so I put it there. I got rid of the Wasted Harvester that I did have over here that was from the original TF2 Emporium prop pack, and I might put something else there by FGD5, mainly because I like the guy's models, and by using everything by him, or them, I don't really know. By using everything by them, I only have to credit one person opposed to having to credit two by having the Wasted Harvester there, so maybe I'll do that, maybe I won't, I'm not sure, but I'm at least going to keep some semblance of this loading zone over here, and it looks pretty good, and it's all these angles! All of these amazing angles. Why this is not supposed to be there. This is supposed to be here, not there. It's always got to be something. I don't know how much use this area over here is actually going to have. If it doesn't have a lot of use, that's okay. As long as it has some use, it should see some use based upon where blue spawns at, since blue can spawn at the bottom of the screen, then go to the top of the screen to go through that doorway as they push their cart from B to C. I don't know how much of this will be used, but if it's not a very overly used route, that's fine. Whenever I think about routes and usage, it's okay to have areas that people don't go all the time. I mean, Badwater has that whole area by B that you don't see people in all that often. It's okay to have less traversed areas. It's bad when you have an area that nobody uses, ever, because no one ever has a reason to go there. But it's okay to have less used areas. And I think that's what this loading zone is going to be. At least, that's the theory. That's the level design theory. But yeah, once B is captured, then we make our way over to C, which has a lot of defending options. You can build a sentry gun here. You can build a sentry gun here. You can build a sentry gun here. Maybe? I don't know. It's kind of dark here. I'm going to figure out what to do with this. This is also a really thin spot. It's exactly the length of that, or the width of that staircase. I might move that around a bit. For this freaking conveyor belt, in order to get this to work the way that I want it to, its collision model includes these handrails originally, so I had to remake the collision with clip brushes and block bullet brushes in order, and then turn the collision for the model off in order to make these railings like other railings in TF2, where you can shoot through the railings, but you can't walk through the railings. The reason why that's done is because trying to shoot these little gaps is really annoying. Getting your bullets and rockets and whatnot stuck on the little bars is obnoxious. So pretty much every time you see a railing, it will actually not have collision on it for bullets, but it will have a clip brush going across so you can't walk across it, and that's what I had to redo over here since this whole thing is one big model. But the idea is that there's a lot of defendable spots here. Red has some really good places that can build up, really good sniper areas. Might be a little bit too much, might not be. I'll have to wait and see how things go. The big thing that I'm doing, or that I want to do with this version of the map, is I want to stop blue rolling. I do not want blue to start pushing the cart and never stop. I want red to be able to actually stop them at the points and defend the points. If blue just rolls all the way through all of your points, that's a really big problem. So if this is too easy to defend and too hard to attack, I can always make it easier to attack. But trying to get it defendable, consistently defendable, is my number one priority at this point in development. And the same goes for D. D does have more rollback zones. You have a little rollback zone here, and you've got a little rollback zone kind of like upward over here. But you've got a good amount of attacking spots and defendable spots. You can't get up on top of this. This is mostly there so you can see across. So you can have like a sniper up here doing sniper battles from these balconies. Blue team, once they get up here, they can use this staircase to get this way, go around over here. If there's a sentry built up over there, like a spy can go around and take care of that. There's also this path over here behind the objective to give them another sort of sneaky little spy route, even some ammo over there for them to grab to get around this way and deal with any sentries and that kind of stuff. Because there's plenty of places to build up sentries. You can, like I said before, this pathway, when that door closes, turns into a good place to build a sentry. You can build up a sentry over here. You can build up a sentry over there, even though it's not really great because you can get shot pretty easily by both up there and over there. You can build up a sentry over here, and you can build up a sentry over here. So there should be some good defending spots, as well as hopefully some good ways to get around places. And a lot of this area is built off of brushes. Something I'm really trying to do is I'm not trying to rely on props all that often. C is pretty prop heavy comparatively to everything else, mainly to keep people out of places they're not supposed to be, like getting down under here. And I do have rock props in some places around the map to provide cover. But for the most part, I want the geometry to be very brush-based instead of prop-based for the sake of optimization. The way that this map is built, I'm really trying to build it for optimization, and this should work pretty well for optimization with how the track curves around all these different buildings, so there's really no reason why the game should render everything at once. My previous maps have always had the problem that they weren't really built for optimizing. That way, when I got to the point of detailing them, I needed to optimize them. It was a huge pain in the butt. So I'm trying to really build this map for optimization, and since I changed D to be around that curve, it seems to be working okay. When this map was originally like a straight line, more so, and I had D all the way over here, it did have a little bit of optimization issues, because if you were in red spawn all the way over here, there's still a possibility that things are being rendered out here, even though you can't see them. But now that it goes around on a curve, it should be better, I hope. But anyway, that's a lengthy video for you. That's me talking about my thought process behind Payload Midwest Alpha 2 and Alpha 3B. Thank you very much for watching. I will be making more videos in the development of this map as development goes on. I have been MegapieMan, and please let me know what you think of the map, what you think of the video, and I will talk to you guys later. I really like this spot. I think it works well. It's not overly complicated, but still complex, you know? Man, I hope this plays well.